In this tutorial, I'm going to look at creating an exploded view drawing from our assembly of the Stirling engine, and we'll also bring in a bill of materials and we'll balloon reference the drawing. So here's our exploded view, and we're going to bring this into our drawing. We're going to add a bill of materials. We're going to use detail numbering. You'll find information on the bill of materials on the tables drop down in annotations. And we have options here, and we'll look at editing and adding columns and so forth. Balloons are where we identify the individual parts in our assembly, and we're going to add these using the auto balloon tool, which will allow us to add all the balloons in one go, and then we can reposition those afterwards. SOLIDWORKS uses magnetic lines to align the balloons, and we'll look at this also. So let's get to it in SOLIDWORKS. Now, to add the exploded view, we need to add an A3 sheet to our drawings. So here's our drawing file. We've got 4 tabs so far. So how are we going to add an A3 sheet to this? Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. One would be to use the sheet format for A3. Now, if I go to right click here and add a sheet, you'll see that the sheet format could not be located. So we'll click OK on this. And the reason for that is I'm going to click cancel on this. Now it does bring in a sheet, and as you can see, it doesn't have any border or anything like that. So let's delete that sheet out. If you want to add a sheet format, you need to first go into options, system options and drawings, and check that this box is ticked. Show sheet format dialog when adding new sheet. Now if that's ticked already, then you wouldn't have got the previous message. So show sheet format dialog when adding new sheet, make sure that's ticked and click OK. Now if you go right click add sheet, you get the option to select a sheet format, and a sheet format is an SLD DRT file. If you want your sheet format to appear on this drop down list, you would need to set SOLIDWORKS options for sheet formats to point to your sheet formats or templates folder. Now we only need one, so I'll just go and browse to our sheet format. These are the SOLIDWORKS default ones. So let's go to our templates folder, and in here are our sheet formats. So let's select A3 landscape third angle. Click open, click apply changes. It says there are blocks with duplicate names. Say no to this, you don't want to rename anything. And here then is your A3 sheet ready to be used. Another way to do this, and maybe you might prefer this, is to open up a new drawing using your A3 sheet. Click the red X. So here's a brand new drawing with an A3 sheet on it. So if you right click on this sheet and select copy, use Control Tab to go back to your Stirling engine drawing, and if you just use Control V, you get this option to paste it in, and I'll use the option move to the end and click OK. So now I have an A3 sheet, and that's probably an easier way to do it. So I'm going to delete the first one. Just right click and delete that sheet out. So this sheet here, this is our A3 sheet. Let's rename this to exploded view. And over here on the right hand side, if you use collapse items, you can tidy up all your sheets. And if you want to reorder this, so I'll drag the exploded view and drop it in there after assembly section views. So there's our exploded view now. And so we have the sheets in the order we need for later on. So let's bring in our exploded view now. So let's go over here to the view palette, refresh. Now make sure Stirling engine, if you need to browse to it again, click on the dots and go off and select your project. So let's refresh it. So there is an isometric exploded here, but let's just bring in the regular isometric view. So here's our isometric view. Let's display it in shaded mode. Let's delete the center lines out of the isometric view because we don't need these in our pictorials. Let's change the sheet scale to 1:2. So here's our isometric view as previously. Now when you click on that view over here in the view properties, you can change between different configurations. So the exploded one is current, that's fine. Now if you tick this box, show an exploded state, your assembly will show up as you exploded it in your assembly. Now this is a little bit too big, so let's change the properties of the sheet again to 1:2.5. And dragging the view border, you can move the assembly around there and just place it roughly there on your sheet. So if I click the view here now, on the annotation tab over here, you can bring in your bill of materials. So select bill of materials. The BOM template you want is BOM material. That'll bring in the material column. If that's not there, click on the open table template here and make sure you selected BOM material, which is this one here. We're going to use indented. We're going to use detail numbering because we've got 3 sub-assemblies. We can specify the layer, but this is not really important. Let's put it on the annotations layer, and we have an option here to attach to anchor. I'll come back to that. Let's click OK. So this brings in your bill of materials and you can move it around. Let's collapse our tree here. Clicking on the corner here, I can move this around and we can anchor that there on the corner, like so. So as you can see, your bill of materials is currently too big for our drawing sheet. We also have a column here that we don't need, the description column. So if I right click on the header for this column, I can delete the column. You can also click on these cells, any of these cells here, and drag it just to tidy up your tree. So wait for the double arrows and drag just to tidy it up a little bit. You'll notice that the material for all the parts that you specified earlier when you were creating your parts have populated the bill of materials. So our bill of materials is still a little bit too big. There are a couple of options you can use here to fit this in. You could just drag it by the bottom corner there, bottom right corner. So just drag it and get it positioning there roughly on the sheet. You may notice when you click on the bill of materials, you do get this little arrows here on the left hand side, and they give you what each of the parts look like. A little preview of those there if you wish. So you do have an option, follow assembly order here, starting at 1, and if you click on that, your bill of materials will follow the assembly order. Another option you have to make sure your bill of materials fits on the sheet would be to reduce the size of the font. So to do this, go to Options, Document Properties, Tables, and Bill of Materials. And in here, if you go to Font, you can, let's say, reduce the size of this to 2.5. And all of your text then will be 2.5 on your bill of materials there, like that. So with those options, you can easily get your bill of materials to fit on the sheet. So there's our bill of materials fitting on the sheet. The attach to anchor option, you can specify different anchor points. We haven't used any. If I click attach to anchor, you'll see that it attaches actually to this point over here. So now how do I get it back to this corner over here? So if I expand out the sheet here, and if you go to the sheet format, you have an option here, set anchor for the bill of materials. So I'm going to set the anchor to this point here, and then on my table I'm going to attach it to anchor, and the anchor is the top left. So that will move your bill of materials back on there, and it's now fixed at the top left corner of the sheet like that. Let's bring in our balloons. So if you click on the view and click auto balloon, it will auto balloon the drawing for you there. Now these balloons are attached to magnetic lines, so I'm going to change the leader attachment to faces, so that will change from arrows to dots. Zoom in there, now displaying dots. Now if you want to move all of these together, you have to move them now. So as I move one set of these balloons attached to the magnetic line, they all move. So I'm just going to position this so that one's on the sheet and add that. Now you can come back and you can move these independently. So you can take each set of balloons here and you can move them around. You can lengthen these magnetic lines. You can drag them off the vertical if you want. Now what you can't have is leader lines crossing one another. So you can move these around afterwards. So I can click on any of these balloons here, click on the dot, and you can relocate these. You can move these balloons up and reposition them. So you've got a lot of flexibility with this. If you click on a magnetic line, you have currently set to free drag. You have an option to use equal spacing if you wish. And then as you change the length of the line, but really whatever works for you, you've got a lot of options there. Again, you can click on the individual dots there and move them around. So another thing you could do is you could take this and move these around and drop it down there. So if you need to put in a new magnetic line, a manual one, you can also do this. So you can add these to a magnetic line and it'll pick them up there and line them up for you like that. Let's change this back to free drag. You can move these around now anywhere and place them on the line like that. So you can now move your balloons. If you drag it off one, you can drop it onto the other magnetic line like that. And in this way you can get your balloons to appear so that they don't overlap, and you can move them around. So you don't want the leader lines, I should say, for the balloons crossing each other. So these, you can move them around and just show it in a way that makes sense. Okay, so they can't cross over, can't be like that. Okay, leader lines, you don't want them crossing. So you can move them around to achieve the look that you're looking for. So where we have more than one instance of a part, let's say these screws here, you have an option here to change to circular split line, and what that shows now is that this is item number 17 and there are 4 instances. So we have the instances there, so that's circular split line, and that will show 4 instances in this case. Something similar for this one here, so let's just do one more. Click on the balloon for the screws there, change it to circular split line, and the top number is the item number and the lower is the quantity. So this again will show 4 here, and click OK. So here's our balloon referencing of the Stirling engine. So this is sheet is A3, and now all the other sheets will be A4, and you can continue to copy these sheets as you did before. So that concludes this video. Hopefully you learned something there about adding a bill of materials, balloon referencing a drawing using auto balloon and doing it manually, and also how to add an A3 sheet to your A4 drawings file. Thank you.